Hi, my name is Alexis Matson, and today I will be presenting my second life skills presentation, which is change in coping. And we will be talking about kinds of change, results of change, coping defined, so I'll define what coping means, why is it important to cope. Then we'll go to how do we cope, active coping strategies, which I'll explain, lack of coping and what happens when we don't, and then the benefits of coping. Lastly, I will cover the W.R.A.P tool. It's called Wellness Recovery Action Plan, and it's an app that can be helpful for your mental health and managing every day. So starting off, kinds of change include internal, external, life role, transitional, and transformational change. And I'll talk more about these individually. So internal change is mental health, physical health, new personal decisions, and spiritual change. So anything that happens within a person themselves. It can be physical, it can be mental, spiritual, anything that happens within your body. So if you have experienced a stroke, that is internal change. If you have experienced increased or decreased mental health, that is also a change. It doesn't have to be negative all the time. It doesn't have to be something taken away or something that is, I guess, not something that's desirable, such as an illness. However, it can be, for some people, like the stroke, it might have affected you internally, physically, and mentally. So just anything that can happen, or even positive things that have happened. External change includes the seasons, so like the weather, technology advancing, social and economic change. And these are the things that happen outside of a person's body that can still happen with them or to them. So socially, your friend groups can change, people move. That's something that is not happening within you, but it is still happening around you. And so weather, we can't control the weather, we can't control the seasons, but it's constantly changing. And that counts as well. You can also count politics in this, and that can affect daily lives of people as well. Life role change. So you can be a parent, you can be a grandparent, and you might even be promoted from a parent to a grandparent. And then there's being employed and maybe being unemployed, whether you're retired or something happened to where you are unable to work at the moment. Either way, it's a life role change. You might be a provider or you might be a receiver, and you might switch in that role. You might be a spouse, you might have gotten divorced, you might have a new relationship. All of these things, like on the picture on the right, you could be a Christian, author, student, grandparent, friend, spouse, employee, anything that kind of identifies you as a person and a role that you play in your life constitutes the life role change portion. There's transitional change, which is from an old state to a new state. So you might be moving homes. It's not necessarily changing anything drastic within you. It's not really changing anything around you per se, but you are moving homes. And so it's more of just, I'm moving from old to new, and it's endings and new beginnings. It doesn't have to be positive. It doesn't have to be negative. It can still be neutral in terms of whether you gain or lose something. But either way, transitional will always end up in that new state. So reflecting upon your own life, maybe you're transitioning out of your job, which is just old state to new state. And maybe you are transitioning a life role, which totally counts. If you're a parent being promoted to a grandparent, and it's a transition. Then there's transformational change. And this is where we learn, heal, and become something new, and we invite new things. This is one of what I believe to be the best kinds of change, because in the end, we end up better than we began. So it kind of shows the caterpillar turning into a butterfly. You can learn more, you can recover. If you've had a stroke, you can recover from your stroke. All of these things to say, you're recovering, you're healing, you're learning, you're gathering information, gathering tools, and becoming something new. So this is a minute when you can reflect. If you're in a group, you can discuss. Are there any current changes that you are going through right now? Whether that is internal, external, any of the other changes that I have mentioned. If you would like to, you can pause the video to take a minute to reflect and discuss. and come back to the video when you are done. So I'm going to define coping. Coping is of a person to deal effectively with something difficult. It doesn't have to be life-altering. It can be something as small as, I say as small as, but it can be big, as a transition in life, or something that is maybe financially difficult or physically difficult. Any of these things specifically having to do with yourself and your difficult situation. And since change happens all the time, we need to be able to deal effectively with all of these changes and difficult situations. Why is it important to cope? So we can tolerate change. We minimize our stress, which can be detrimental to the way your brain functions and your body functions. It will help you manage difficult situations, and it can help improve mental health. And then how do we cope? There's active coping strategies, and I specifically use the word active because it is attempting to change the current position you're in. And whether or not you are in a bad position, an okay position, active coping is something that you do, taking initiative and doing something proactive to cope. So that includes hobbies, stress relieving activities, self-care, and seeking support. So for hobbies, you might like journaling, reading, art, music, or cooking, and all of these things. There's so many more things that you can do out there. Some people I know have mentioned sewing and dancing and building things. All of these things are activities that you can do to cope with the current situation. It's just something that improves your mental health. Maybe you can spend some of your time enjoying something. This can support how you function overall by doing things that you enjoy. Because if life is always negative or just work, then it starts to become a little bit dark. So make sure to integrate hobbies into your coping skills. So again, just like the other question, you can take this minute to pause the video and discuss or reflect. What are some of your coping skills or hobbies? Go ahead and take a minute and come back to the video when you're ready. Same thing, take a minute, reflect. What are some hobbies that you used to do and want to do again? So I know for some of us, you may have experienced a stroke, and you might have experienced some of the things that have changed you, whether it's your speech or your motor function, the way that your body moves. Either way, there might be some hobbies that you used to do, or maybe you just got too busy and you want to do it again. So just take a minute to reflect on this, pause the video, and come back when you're ready. So there are some stress relieving activities that can help you cope, including meditation, which is taking a minute, making sure you're breathing. Maybe you're listening to a guided meditation, whether that's on a podcast, a YouTube video, or somewhere else. You might even just listen to some quiet music and take a minute to reflect on your thoughts, give your brain some space. You can go to a meditation class, just like yoga class. You can do yoga at home. As long as you're being safe about it, it's all good. So yoga is an amazing way to move your body. And maybe if you want to do it in a group setting, that's perfect to do a yoga class somewhere around you. You can look up videos on YouTube and follow those. Just make sure you're being safe, and these activities are approved by your doctor if you're being active. Then there's time in nature. Time in nature can help you connect more with your body, more with your space around you. Taking time in nature to go on a walk, to just sit on your porch, whatever, again, is safe and fun for you, is really important, and it connects you to the world around you, especially with all that social media and electronic things. Like right now, we're watching this video, and you might want to take just 5 minutes on your porch to breathe in some fresh air after this. You can play with a pet. You can have your dog, cat, bird, whatever you've got. Spend some time with them. They're great for stress relief. So they're very fun. And then you can color or draw. I do some adult coloring books, so it's a little bit more involved than some of the child coloring books. And then you can draw as well. Self-care is crucial to overall coping, and this is not just like quiet time, eating healthy, exercising regularly, but it's also making sure that you are taking showers and that you're maybe brushing your hair. If you have hair, brushing your teeth, make sure that you're taking care of your personal hygiene so that you can feel better. Because I know sometimes if you just feel bad and you take a shower, you somehow feel better. All these things to say, promote your activities that help you feel the best that you can be, including eating healthy and exercising regularly for your personal health. Quiet time is great for just taking a minute, taking some time alone, whether it's in a room by yourself, whether it's alone in public, but just have quiet time for yourself that you can have space to do things that you enjoy. Then the very last one is give yourself grace and love. So all of these things, all of the change can be so much. And a lot of times we use phrases like should, I should have done this, or I should have reacted in this way. And maybe while it could be true, when you say phrases like I should have, it is making you reflect on something that you cannot change. So make sure that you're giving yourself grace and love and that you are giving yourself time. If you're recovering from a stroke, if you're recovering from a bad relationship, it is not a one-step solve-all situation that's linear. Change and growing from this change, using change as an opportunity, is not linear. It's very, very up and down, but overall there will be improvement. So just give yourself grace and love for the time being and make sure you're getting enough sleep. Make sure you have a good night routine. Again, I mentioned all that personal hygiene. Just make sure you're taking care of yourself. And then seeking support is one of the most important things that we can do. It actually helps your brain function better, and it allows your brain to recover better from traumatic events. Regardless of what that event is, it is crucial to seek support, whether that's from family, friends, if you go to church, pastors or religious leaders, counselors and therapists. And there's also hotlines that you can call if you have addiction. You can call some hotlines for that. If you're having some mental health challenges, there's some hotlines for that as well. Just make sure that you're reaching out, seeking support where you need it. One form of coping is self-soothing. So comforting yourself through your five senses, and we call this grounding, where you take what you taste, what you smell, what you hear, see, and touch, and you take a minute just to kind of ground yourself. Maybe you're overwhelmed, maybe things are just a lot right now. Take a minute and notice how the chair feels on your back, or the way that your socks feel on your feet. Any of these things that can just kind of make you more aware of what is actually happening in your real life right in front of you can help you get away from some of those overwhelming thoughts and the hypotheticals and what ifs that can be detrimental to your brain and your overall mental health. Emotional awareness is a tool for identifying and expressing your feelings, whether it's journaling, drawing, talking to a friend, anything that you can do, whether it's creative or even logical. Maybe you have to talk through something that you need to do, or something that is frustrating to you, something that you need to talk about. That's totally fine. Just make sure that you're aware of what you feel and you identify it, express it in a way that is healthy and benefits you. Another form of coping is distraction. This is a great tool, but it's also not the only tool. If it's the only tool, it can be pretty dangerous. So you can take your mind off the problem for a while. Again, you shouldn't take it off all the time. You shouldn't just pretend like it never happened, push it down, but you can 100% take your mind off the problem for a while. You can do puzzles, read books, do art, watch a movie, play music, whatever you like to do. Just make sure that it's a set time for yourself. Maybe it's alone time, maybe it's time with friends. You have that distraction time to allow your brain something happy for a while before you face that problem again. Mindfulness, I covered a little bit before. There are some classes, there are some coaches that you can find both online and maybe in your local area. So it's some tools for centering and grounding yourself. Again, like I mentioned, you can look online. There's YouTube videos. On Spotify, there's podcasts. You can meditate, relax, and breathe during this time. And it's just kind of being aware of yourself, your position in space, how your body is feeling, and it helps you walk through, especially if you do a guided something where someone or something is telling you via podcast, in person, whatever it might be, it is telling you to kind of walk through your body, walk through how you feel, walk through where you're at. I use this tool when I feel extremely overwhelmed, or I feel like sometimes I'm getting so stressed out that maybe I'm feeling a little sick. All of these things, take a minute for mindfulness and ground yourself again if life gets too challenging. Then there's coping, which is the opposite action form of coping, and it is doing something that is the opposite of your impulse. So whether it's affirmations, looking at funny things, and it's just basically if you feel down on yourself, you feel like everything is bad, nothing is fun, just maybe you can listen to a podcast that has affirmations. I know I listen to a podcast that has a lady saying things like, I am strong, I am making it through this difficult time. And I'm just hearing and listening and thinking to myself all of these positive affirmations that I don't normally think of myself. So it helps having that podcast to kind of help me think those thoughts. Funny things are great. Watch some funny YouTube videos, go on Facebook and find some funny videos. Funny, we call them memes. So just funny pictures, maybe read the newspaper and have some comics. Just do something that is the opposite of your impulse, including doing something you enjoy. So there's a crisis plan of coping. So crisis is when things get too overwhelming, everything feels like it's breaking. Make sure that you have contact info of supports and resources for when coping skills aren't enough. And as I mentioned before, this can be family, friends, therapists, pastors, and hotlines, anything that you can do. Just have these for when times get too tough, when things just aren't really working out, and so that you can have a plan when crisis does happen. When you don't cope, some of the results include negative mental health implications. So you can have some negative mental health when you might experience depression, you might experience some anxiety, all of these things that kind of go around your mental health. You're not interested in doing the activities you enjoy anymore. All of these things can kind of take you down entirely as an entire person because your mind is what leads your body. So it can have some negative mental health implications, and it can lead to decreased physical health. It can make you sick. It can make you feel just not excited to do things. So then you aren't active anymore. You might eat more or you might eat less. All of these things can contribute to decreased physical health because you're not coping with something that's going on. And you can withdraw socially. You, like I mentioned, might have depression, anxiety. You might experience some lack of sleep, whether that is you waking up in the middle of the night, not being able to sleep when you go to bed. Just make sure that you're coping, you're talking to someone, you're making sure that your routines are set and that you're doing the best that you can. And give yourself love. I am doing the best that I can. Everything is okay, even if I don't feel okay right now. So take a minute and reflect again. If you're in a group, you can discuss, has there been a time that you have not taken care of yourself and negative effects have occurred? So some benefits, talking about the positive side, you can improve your mental health, control what you can, and improve toleration of difficult situations. So when you cope with one problem, you have tools that you can use for the next problem because life is always going to throw curveballs at you. You learn to control what you can. You have a better mental health, perspective where you can take that perspective and use it in the future as well. So talking about the W.R.A.P, it stands for Wellness Recovery Action Plan. It helps you maintain wellness, develop a daily plan, and keep moving forward even if things are not working out. So this is an app that you can download on your iPhone or iPad or even a Samsung phone. And it's just an app that lists your stressors. So things that are maybe bad right now, whether it's illness, bad things going on, if you've got a difficult sister or parent or daughter or any of those things that kind of contribute to your stress levels. Maybe your work is super stressful right now, or maybe you aren't working anymore and that stresses you out. So you're listing all of these things, putting them on paper, making a physical form of your feelings. Then you can list warning signs of a crisis. So like I mentioned, crisis is when you are so overwhelmed, things are breaking, but you're not quite there yet. So these are some of the warning signs that you notice. Maybe your palms start sweating, your heart rate increases, you might withdraw from people, all these things that are just warning signs so that you're more self-aware. Then there's the crisis plan. When things are breaking, you feel like they are breaking, everything is falling down, you don't know what to do, you have a plan for it written in this app that you can do, whether it's contacts, again, for your family, friends, pastor, therapist, all of that. You can have a plan for when things break. And then there's the post-crisis plan, and that's what happens afterwards. We just had this extreme emotional, I'd say adventure, but it's not really that positive. It's something that after we're done experiencing this intense emotional circumstance, what do we do? Do I schedule more therapy sessions? Do I schedule coffee with a friend to discuss this? Do I take a minute and have some alone time for myself? You're going to list what you're going to do afterwards so that you can be successful moving on. And then there's also a daily plan. Like for me, I know if I don't get enough sleep, I will be miserable. So I make sure that my daily plan is I get enough sleep, and that's specifically 7 to 9 hours or whatever it might be for you. Talk with your doctor about maybe some vitamins that you take, or make sure you're taking your medicine so that you feel good. Like make sure that you are taking, especially blood pressure medication, for example, you're taking these things that are necessary for yourself every single day. And I even take an hour for myself where I just read, and I'm able to read for an hour and nothing bugs me. And I put it in my daily plan so that I can have that alone time and that I can do something I enjoy. So you're listing all of these things out so that you can be more productive, and not only just more productive, but just overall in a better state to take care of yourself during difficult situations. And I want to point out in my references, there is Serenity Mental Health Centers, and that is a website that has some great blogs for mental health resources. And this one I use some coping skills from their website. So everything in this hopefully gave you a bit of a better tool or tools to focus on your future, to manage change, and to cope with this change, because life is change. And while it's difficult, there are things that we can actively decide to do to be proactive, to make ourselves feel better and to just cope with that a bit more. And thank you for listening. And I hope that this helped. And if you would like to go back to the video to review some other things, that's totally fine. And thank you for listening.